All right, what's going on, guys? Percy TCG here, and today we're gonna go over the meta. I feel like right now is the perfect time to go over what decks are kind of the better decks in the current meta and which ones are the worst. Most decks are pretty viable in the current meta, but there are some decks that are like, you're more than likely not gonna do very well with that deck. So, without further ado, quick shout out to BSS Central. I'll leave a link to his channel down in the description. Um, so we appreciate what he did and made this tier list. I don't think this tier list was made for making the meta, but um, we're not gonna use these last cards here. We're just gonna use from Freestall all the way up to Seaworm here, because these don't really matter, to be honest. Well, besides him, he does matter, so we'll put him up here. So with the Star Dragon deck, I honestly feel all right putting it C tier because you can pull off some pretty good stuff with the deck, but the deck is just it lacks the placements, it lacks a lot of things. It's just the deck. Cool, you get you can heal 5 life and everything like that, but I don't know. On paper it seems good, but when you see it in play, it doesn't feel bad, or it just feels bad. You know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like C tier is a good spot for this deck. Any lower, I don't think this deck's like the worst of the worst, but it's also, you know, not the best. It's easy to beat, I should say. I don't think that what it does is bad. I just think that what the other decks do, they do it better than what Star Dragon can do. So I guess that's kind of the best way to put it. So next we have White Control with the Fanatec Elk. I feel like this is B tier, mid B tier towards the high B tier. It's just it's has the placements, it has the results. Um, we do have a couple winning deck lists of White Control, so I feel like this is a good spot for it. The deck is good at bouncing. Deck is good. It can be aggressive if you really need it to be. It's just so good at controlling your opponent. I honestly feel like it's the most all around deck in the game. People may disagree with me and say other decks are. I don't know why, but I think this is the most well rounded deck is the White Control deck. So moving on, we have the Pterosaur deck. This is easy A tier. This deck has the placements. It has the representation. It has the aggro. It just, I mean, it's pretty obvious this deck is one of the better decks in the game right now, solely based off of the placements. You just anytime you look at like a top 16 chart, you see Pterosaur there somewhere. You know what I mean? You obviously see the like other decks there pretty consistently, but you don't see them all the time like you see Pterosaur, right? So I feel like A tier for this deck is a really good spot. Then we have the core control variant of purple. I honestly want to put this towards the lower B tier. I do want to put it behind white control because I do think white control does do better. Do I think that white control wins this matchup? I don't think so, but at the same time, I think white control does better into other matchups than core control does itself. You know what I mean? It's just I don't think that core control is bad, but I don't think it's one of the better variants of purple right now. So next we're just gonna move on to the purple mid range. I put this at a solid A tier. I put this. It's either on par with Pterosaur or just below Pterosaur, just because let's be honest with each other here. Purple has the most wins in events right now, so it's obviously one of the better decks. People play well with it. Um, It's one of the it's another thing like Pterosaur. It's one of those decks that you always see it in the top 16s, whether it's mid range. Well, you usually see mid range. Mid range didn't really pop up in the very beginning of Battle Spirits Saga, but now we see a lot more mid range than we do core control, and I think that the mid range is doing purple players a lot of justice right now. So next we have white aggro. Now this one I'm really debating whether I want to put this high or like above white control or below. So these are interchangeable. Honestly, you could put it ahead or you could put it behind. It's really a toss up to me, simply because white aggro. People are now learning how to play against white aggro, and they know how to deal with it better now than they did when the game first started. So if you would have asked me about, I don't know, maybe 3 4 weeks ago, I would have definitely told you this is the best deck in the game. White aggro, I definitely would have told you it's the best deck. But now that the meta's developing now, so we're seeing that white aggro kind of isn't as good as everyone thought it was. Well, it's still good. I'm not gonna say it's not as good. People are just learning how to play against it, and they're countering it much better than before. So next we have the Fabled Beast deck. This is another deck I feel like A tier. People might not agree with me on this A tier pick for Fabled Beast, but I don't know, man. I feel like Fabled Beast, they also have that representation in the top 16s with the Behemoth and the Alice. It's just I really think this is one of the better decks in the meta. It's really countered by purple. Purple gives this deck a really hard time, and so does red. Red also gives yellow a very hard time. But that's kind of why I think it's not really topping events. I don't think we have a Fabled Beast list that has won an event so far. Just so far, you know maybe Ohio a Fabled Beast deck comes out of the woodwork and just starts taking names. You never know. So yeah, I feel like it's justified here. It has just as much aggro as a Pterosaur deck. Well, I'm not gonna say just as much. It has close to as much aggro as the red Pterosaur deck has. Um, you can pull off some crazy stuff with it. You can really pull off some really crazy things with Fabled Beast, especially if you're playing that Pegasaurus. But I mean, Alice definitely seems like it's the better card over Pegasaurus. Next, we have Luster. I honestly want to put this in D tier. This deck has no representation. I mean, we have one deck I think that's gotten one top 16 out of all of the events we've had so far. So I mean, I feel like it's safe to say this is like the D tier deck. It's really hard to win with this deck. If you manage to win with this deck, I'll give you a cookie. I mean, shit. Yeah, there's not really much to say about Luster here. That just I feel like this is going to be one of those decks that's going to be problematic maybe later in the future, but as of right now, we don't have much diversity when it comes to Magic cards. So I mean, spamming Angelic Pressure is cool. Spamming your Gleam of Hope to keep getting draws is cool. But it's just it's not. I don't know. Exhaust Nexus is cool, but I don't know. I feel like Yellow Luster doesn't have that umph. You know what I mean? To be able to end the games. I feel like they have a good mid to late game, but their early game is if their early game sucks, the rest of the game is gonna suck for them, basically. But like these other decks, even I'd even say Red Star Dragon, even if your early game isn't the greatest, I feel like you could still pull something off with any of these decks besides Luster. And then we'll use Freestyle here for the 2 cost rush deck. I honestly feel like it's worse than the Star Dragon deck. 2 cost rush, because okay, your bodies are so, how do I put this? They're marshmallows, okay? They're squishy. They're puffy. They die. You get burning forced. You get angelic pressured. You get feral slashed. You get volcanic braked. You don't have anything to make your body stick like you want them to, and that's where the deck really falls flat. Now, if don't get me wrong, if you can pull off some crazy stuff with the deck, you definitely can win games in turn 2, turn 3. But it's not consistent enough. The deck isn't. The bodies themselves don't have any type of protection to keep them from dying. So I feel like that's a good spot for it. Which, I mean, even with the bodies dying, Behemoth still comes out and he's still, a thing. But if you don't have your 2 costs along with the Behemoth, the deck just falls on its face, honestly. So these are the only cards I want to go over. The rest of these don't really have a designated deck. I would say Curse, maybe put it high D tier if you want. I don't think the Curse variant of this deck is all that great. But yeah. Well, that's kind of my tier list, guys. It's my opinion. I want to hear your guys' opinion. I want to see what your guys' take on this as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Hit that like button down below. Subscribe for more content from your boy. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.